In today's video, we are ranking the best dollar per horsepower ratio of motorcycles on sale today, but it's not gonna be some low IQ video where we just talk about the best bang for buck motorcycle, right, Logan?
Yeah, I think we, instead of just top tier leader bikes and super bikes, we wanted to do a more realistic, smattering assortment of motorcycles. So we got different displacements, different categories, and I think we're both gonna learn a little bit about what we're really paying for when it comes to motorcycles.
Yeah, today's video is more about the value of what you're getting. Why don't we start it off, set the barometer, set the tone of the video, something everybody knows, and that's the Street Triple 765R from Triumph. This motorcycle makes 118 horsepower and costs $10,895. It's the entry-level model to the Street Triple. A lot of people talk about the RS, and that is my preferred model as well. But this is still a really good bang for buck. You're getting good build quality, good horsepower, and I think it's a pretty nice bike, Logan.
Definitely. Yeah, as you mentioned, we talk mostly about the RS on this channel, just because if you're gonna go for the Street Triple, it's worth nutting up and paying for the RS trim. But in the context of today's video, talking about value, specifically when it comes to horsepower per dollar, the 765R is pretty hard to beat.
Yeah, it's a really value-driven motorcycle. It's $92 per horsepower, which is pretty sweet. And it's gonna rank it today as an A-tier motorcycle. We think it's pretty awesome. Pretty good value for money, really great motorcycle. Not a whole lot else to be said about it. So you kind of see where we're getting at today. It's not an S-tier bike by any means, but we have some very interesting choices for the S-tier. So stick around, let's move on to the next bike. Logan, this next one really goes outside the bounds of normal motorcycling.
Sure.
We are talking about one of your favorite motorcycles, right? We're just gonna put that out there, of course. The Indian Challenger Elite. I don't know why I threw you under the bus like that. It's not your favorite bike at all. So, okay, let's set the tone for what this bike is. This is Indian's King Dick Daddy Bagger bike. It's $40,000. MSRP is $39,999. And one of the funnier things about it is on the website, one of the key stats that it lists is 400 watts for the amp system. I don't know about you, Logan, but if I was crushing out 400 watts on the bicycle, I'd feel pretty damn good about that.
For sure, but instead we're cranking out 400 watts of dad rock.
Yes.
And it's interesting, since we're on the topic, Harley Davidson gets dogged on all the time for being bad value, right? But why do people still simp for Indian so much? This is a $40,000 motorcycle that makes what, 126 horsepower?
Yeah.
That's not good.
No, it's not.
Why do people not dump on Indian?
You could pick up two R1s for that price, but I think what you're paying for here is the crazy paint job, the sound system, I guess, which again, a couple $100, get a Cardo, you're already set there, but we're not gonna talk about that. Which, speaking of value, Logan, something that just came to mind is if you wanted the best bang for buck experience having an Indian Challenger Elite, you can just walk around downtown with a boombox. It's the same thing, basically, just blur out your dad rock and go really slow.
Yeah, for sure.
Walk around with the boombox, same thing here. So this one, unfortunately, we are going to rate an F as value and dollar per horsepower. It actually ranked as $317 per horsepower.
It's one expensive pony.
That is an expensive pony, and it doesn't even go very fast, so what are you doing? Next up is one that is very good value for money, excellent technology, excellent amount of power, and a pretty sweet bike. Getting a little long in the tooth, it is, of course, Yamaha's R1. Logan, how does the R1 stack up in the pantheon of dollar per horsepower and value?
Stacks up pretty well. I mean, it's always kind of making lists of, best bang for your buck motorcycles. I think for a lot of people that are shopping purely per power, maybe of the kind of more squiddly variety, the Yamaha is a great place to look. Under $20,000 for, kind of world-class, like you said, a little long in the tooth, but still world-class super bike.
Yeah, with an excellent exhaust note, very exotic sound. Yamaha kind of pioneered the 6-axis IMU in a street bike. It had the original smaller TFT with the really cool loadout. I still love the R1's startup sequence. It does the little flashing thing and all that. Call me a CF Moto adjacent enjoyer, but I do like the little touches like that. Race winning pedigree, very cool motorcycle, still seen on World Superbike and national level racing, very competitive bike. My choice here in terms of value for money, if you are looking for a leader bike for track day duty, the R1's probably your best bet because the rest are all heinously expensive to run. If you're talking about running a BMW or a Ducati V4, it's gonna be twice as expensive versus running an R1. Parts are cheaper for this thing, maintenance is gonna be cheaper. This is a pretty good value for what you're getting. 18 grand for 200 horsepower, leader bike, top shelf performance. What else is there to say? This thing's
hard to beat.
It's really hard to beat. So this one is also going to rank in the A tier. But you guys will see, Street Triple, R1, both A tier because we're looking at the value, relatively speaking, right? That Street Triple is a little over 10 grand, still a great fun motorcycle. Under 20 gets you world-class leader bike performance. All good stuff.
Funny side note too, we're doing a little bit of teaser maybe, and it came from Craigslist, R6 special coming up. And some people are selling R6s for nearly what you could buy an R1 for.
I hate the world we live in. Moving on.
Speaking of hating the world we live in, BMW 1300 GS. So we had a bit of a challenge with this one because BMW kind of does a bait and switch thing on their website, always advertising base price.
It's crazy.
Base price $20,000. No way in hell is anyone paying $20,000. So instead we looked at like local dealership listings to see what they're selling for. $25,000 is definitely the more realistic.
Yeah.
Not even out the door price, just sticker price for this model. And producing just 145 horsepower.
That's probably the upper echelon of what a boxer motor can make. That honestly, I was pretty surprised by that amount of horsepower. That is a lot.
Any more power, the pistons are literally just gonna like shoot sideways like out of the case.
They'll just pop out like an old jalopy or something, but it's a pretty prodigious amount of torque and power. The GS is chock full of features and technology and all kinds of stuff on it as well. But that's the thing, Logan, every couple of years they update it, they change stuff, and you are gonna be paying for that as the consumer. So this one, you know, it didn't rank all that great in terms of dollar per horsepower, $172 per pony on this one.
Yeah, it's pretty expensive. But yeah, like you said, you're paying for the tech, the features, that telelever suspension.
It's the TT, Logan. Telelever tax?
Telelever tax. And the dealership experience is pretty nice, I've heard tell.
That's true.
You get like a little coffee and air conditioning and all the things in regular dealerships, but it's BMW, so it's nicer and it's more expensive.
Yep. Yeah. So we ranked it as a D tier.
D.
Unfortunately. Not particularly good value for money. But here's the thing, right? Much like the Challenger Elite and much like the GS, these bikes exist in the world of like, if you really want one, it doesn't really matter what the price per dollar is. Like, I think the Challenger Elite customer and the BMW GS customer, they're not that cost constrained. They're not worrying about like, I need to maximize my dollar. It's very much like the manufacturer knows they can get away with it, so they will charge you more.
Yeah, and people who buy these bikes are people with you money. Yeah. Like they can just literally, they don't care what it costs, they just pay it. Okay, next up on the list is the Honda CB1000 Hornet SP. So this bike is going to rank really high, of course. Honda specifically built it to meet a price point, right? Like they were trying to say, we're gonna make the most fun, fastest, affordable bike on the market. They're gonna eat the Z900's lunch, essentially.
Eat everybody's lunch. MT10, Street Fighter, all of them. And
so there's a little bit of a caveat. As we know now, this bike's super, super neutered in the US, down about 20 horsepower from 155 to about 130 compared to the European trims or the European spec, whatever. But with a very simple fix, ECU flash, you can make in like 140 wheel horsepower with like stock setup. So we factored all that in and rounded it out to about just the 155 crank horsepower.
Yep.
And budgeted a little bit of extra money on top of the 11,000 MSRP.
Yeah, because I think anybody that buys this bike is going to do that. Like 100%. You're leaving substantial performance on the table with just like a week's worth of time and a couple $100. Like anyone would do that. So we factored that in, and it's still ranked really high, Logan. $73 per horsepower. That is really nice.
Yeah, that's I mean, it's just down to the math. It's one of the best kind of values in terms of power and performance of all the bikes on the list today. As a result, it has landed the first bike to make it in the S tier.
Yes.
S tier offering from Big Red.
Yeah, which is kind of rare. I mean, Honda's typically known as the more expensive option, the more premium option, but I think they're seeing the writing on the wall with the way the economy is going, the way the competitors are going. They're like, we gotta start pricing stuff a little bit more aggressively. But these new bikes Hondas are making, I mean, they got the build quality, the reliability, they're just amazing. So yeah, Honda Hornet SP, that is an S tier bang for buck motorcycle. You were saying that you kind of think it's gonna be like, for the next 5 years, the squid bike du jour.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 11,000 bucks MSRP, $1,000 for a slip-on and flash, and it's gonna be, 145 to the wheel. Crazy. Who wouldn't, if you're into going fast and spending a little money, what's not to like? But yeah, sweet bike, S tier.
Yeah, moving on. Logan, this next bike, you know, they made it, so we got to talk about it. I don't really know if it's, really like a production motorcycle, but they are going to be making them. It is the Harley Davidson Road Glide CBO RR. List price on this, Logan. Are you ready?
Ready. Relate on me.
It's $110,000.
Wow. That's a lot. That's like it's like unfathomable. Like for a motorcycle,
I
sounded underwhelmed, but it's because I can't even comprehend that.
Yeah, so I've bought lots of motorcycles here for the channel. We've done like 68 giveaway bikes, and I write checks for all of them, right? And part of me is like sitting down at a dealer and putting out the checkbook and writing a 6-figure amount for a motorcycle. Logan, my net worth would have to be like $20 million for me to like even think of that being like a normal thing to do.
Yeah.
Who is buying these things that isn't just like financially depraved?
I don't know, because it's positioned kind of, it's like, oh, if you're, you know, like a privateer racer in some weird obscure league, you could buy, but it's like, that doesn't even exist.
There's only king of the baggers.
Yeah, I know.
So you'd have to already be like part of a professional team.
Right.
That doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. And I think you got to own like a whole like chain of Subway sandwich shops or something to afford a bike.
You
like
got to be a
this.
tile flooring mogul
Yeah.
to get up one of these, you know? King of the Southwest, you know what I'm saying? Then you pick up one of these bad boys. Like, I imagine like a weird, like, giant McMansion owner, like in the middle of Phoenix, would buy one of these,
Sure,
you know?
yeah.
Florida guy would definitely buy one of these, you know? I don't know who the type of customer for this bike is, because it starts to get so esoteric. It's adjacent to like the MV Agusta Saudi prince who's just gonna put it in his apartment type of thing. So, dollar per horsepower. This thing makes 153 horsepower, so it is $719 per pony.
That's a lot.
That is a lot.
That's nearly 10 times as much as the Hornet horsepower.
Yes, you could buy almost 10 Honda Hornets for one of these. So again, value is in the eye of the beholder. I'm sure they've sold these to somebody out there, but we actually had to invent a new tier for this one. It is beyond F tier. Logan, lay it on us. What do we got?
H for hog, baby.
Further down the alphabet in its own category, defying all preconceptions, is the Road Glide CVO RR. H for hog. Next up on the list is a more normal adventure offering, and truthfully Honda doing the Honda thing. It is the Africa Twin Adventure Sports. So Africa Twin comes in lots of different trims and lots of different categories. We always say that the best kind of adventure bike is usually buy one slightly used, has already all the Farkles on it. But Logan, you walk into a Honda dealership, buy this brand new, it is $18,399. That's a lot for an Africa Twin.
Yeah, it's a lot of money for an Africa Twin, and you know, you kind of feel bad for the Africa Twin because it is sort of an industry frontrunner for a long time. It kind of did a lot to pioneer, the adventure category in the early days. But now it's like, especially with the Transalp, it's just like an older, fatter, slower Transalp. You know what I mean? Like, and it's in this weird place where that part of the allure, I think, of the Africa Twin still is that it has a lot of the high-end features that people like of adventure touring bikes.
Yeah.
Cruise control, things like that.
Tubeless wheels, I think,
Tubeless wheels, yeah. And so, and then also with this, the DCT, which is a big selling point for a lot of people.
Honda sells a lot of those.
Yeah.
Like way more than I ever thought.
Yeah, I've met multiple people with Africa Twins, with like DCT Africa Twins, and they're like, yeah, it's sick. And so, it's clearly not trying to be the most powerful type of bike. It's trying to be versatile and have a more premium feel. Some of those, Honda features like the DCT and stuff.
Yeah, because at 101 horsepower rated, it's only marginally more power than a Transalp. It does make more torque. It's a much larger motor, but I think that the Transalp certainly is a better fit. And yeah, I agree with you that if they were to make a Transalp with just a few of the features from the Africa Twin, most people would choose the Transalp.
Yeah, for sure.
Most people would
it's
choose.
significantly lighter, significantly cheaper.
Yeah.
And, in off-road applications, probably more usable. And
yeah, and I think only recently have they started shipping those in more interesting colors too, because for a while the Transalp was just black, right? That's the only one.
Yeah, I got stuck with the black one, and now I can get the like 3 color, like the red, white, and blue one with the gold wheels. And so where does this one rank on our tier?
This one ranks as a D tier, unfortunately. It sits right with the GS because it makes such less power than the GS, but it's similar kind of like, if you really want an Africa Twin, you're gonna get one anyways. It doesn't really make a lot of sense when you see the other middleweight offerings, but that's where it's gonna sit for today.
D for dad. It's the dad tier.
Yeah, dad tier, there you go. Parting is such sweet sorrow, but that's what I must do with this Yamaha R9. October 3rd is the very last day you have to get entered to win this machine, so make sure you click the link down below and become a member, sign up, and get your chances locked and loaded to win this Yamaha R9. This is a sweet bike. It's gonna go to someone I know is gonna love it very much and use it for its highest and best use, which maybe doing dank wheelies with it. October 3rd, make sure you got your chances locked and loaded. Don't miss out. All right, next up is a bike that I would probably have a ton of fun with. It is the Ducati Streetfighter V2, the new one based on the 890cc platform. We had the Panny V2 here a while back. Love that motor, love that chassis. This is the naked version of it. And Logan, it's a great time for us to talk about the Ducati tax, because this bike is expensive.
It is expensive, and they can get away with it. People will pay it. I would probably pay it.
It's a sweet bike.
Yeah.
Like, they're really nice to ride. I know people get upset at us that they're like, oh, you just simp for Ducati. Please ride one before you tell me that I'm an asshole for simping for Ducati, because they're just really fun and peppy, and they're making really good stuff. But like Logan said, they can get away with it. So this one is a great opportunity for us to talk about the fact that it makes 120 horsepower, just 2 horsepower more than the Street Triple 765. But $15,500 for this one. That's not even considering the S trim, which gets up to 18 grand, you know? You're talking R1 money for a 120 horsepower middleweight bike. And I've seen these comments where people are like, you're insane for paying that kind of money. And there it is. Again, values in the eye of the beholder.
But the character.
The twin feel, the rumble, the grumble, the red paint job, the Ducati merch. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's pretty cool.
It does have a very premium fit and finish. It feels very special. It doesn't feel like any other motorcycle. And like I said, I think for the right person, and it's worth paying for if that's what you're into, if it makes you happy.
Yeah. So this one specifically in the base trim, it's gonna land itself in the middle, in the C tier. It's not quite as bad as something like the Challenger Elite, where you're like, you have to be really specific, you know, you really want that kind of thing. But it's also not super value driven like the CB1000 Hornet SP, right? So it kind of falls in the middle, right? It's decent value for money. You gotta make some excuses, pay the Ducati tax, but relatively good for what you're getting.
So when I think of value for money, I don't typically think of KTM's larger displacement motorcycles. They're small, they're 390cc stuff, usually is really good value. Ton of features in those bikes. With the bigger stuff, yeah, they make good power and they have good tech, but you know, the cams melt.
Yeah.
So, where does that leave you?
Yeah, on the side of the road.
On the side of the road. And so, the next bike is the Duke 990. The story of the Dukes is it's like an Ouroboros, right? A snake eating its tail, because the Super Duke used to be the 990, weight like in the 90s, and then now the Super Duke's like 5,000 cc's or whatever, and then the 790 became the 890, which became the 990, and then they were still making the 790 again in China, and now they don't make it anymore, don't sell it in America anyway. So it's like the whole thing's convoluted. They all have crazy names that are like really aggressive. Anyway, so the Duke 990 makes about 121 horsepower, costs $12,500. So it's kind of on par with some of these middleweight naked bikes and stuff, but you have to contend with KTM reliability, the stigma of KTM ownership. Do you want to be known as that guy?
I know, it's a big thing. Yeah, I think for me, it's like KTM sort of splits the difference between something like the Streetfighter V2 and the Street Triple 765. It makes a little bit more horsepower. It is a little bit more expensive. It's a pretty big engine, all things considered. But like Logan said, you're gonna have to make some excuses for the brand. There's weird demo stuff that you gotta get involved with. There's tech packages and there's reliability issues. There is a question mark and a bit of a tax you have to pay for it. So the Duke 990 finds itself in a B tier, so actually higher than the Streetfighter, which is kind of interesting. So yeah, it's $3 cheaper than the Streetfighter V2, but it's you know, not quite as value driven as some of the other bikes, but you can make the case for it, relatively speaking. It's not going to be like these bikes down here where you're like, how are you even going to make the case for this bike? You can make the case for the Duke 990. If you're not absolutely trying to maximize your dollar per horsepower, you could say, oh, KTM Duke 990 is pretty good, but I personally would be like, one of these cams gonna melt.
Yeah, you know? When and how.
Yep. What do we got next, Logan?
So we have a Honda in the S tier. It only makes sense that we have a Honda in the F tier. Spoiler alert, it's the NC750.
Yeah, I was really surprised with this. We're not trying to explicitly dunk on the NC750. I think this is the second week in a row we're doing it though, but why did this one find its way so low?
Well, it's just abysmally underpowered, under-equipped. Sure, you get the DCT transmission, but the suspension sucks, the engine sucks, it makes like 58 horsepower, and then the icing on the cake, it costs nearly as much as a Transalp. It's like MSRP is $9,500. You can get so much motorcycle for that.
It is really hard. Yeah, unless you really have like a frunk fetish or something like that, $9,500 for 58 horsepower and like an anemic little parallel twin, I can't make it work.
The math doesn't add up.
Especially with the Transalp right next to it on the showroom floor. I'm like, well, what are you really giving up, you know?
Yeah, I mean, maybe if it's like you put on like 50,000 miles a year, but it's also like all in city traffic. Maybe if you're like a courier.
That is,
and so
I was gonna say that's a tough life.
So you need, yeah, I know. It's like very specific, but it's like, so you need a very, very under stress engine that will just run forever with no maintenance, and you don't want to deal with a clutch or a gearbox.
Yeah.
That person is who buys
And
it.
you're not willing to just buy like a Prius or something, because it would just buy a car at that point. I don't know, just buy like a lightly used, or like 2005 Toyota Corolla. I don't know. If you own an NC750, please leave me a comment down below. Why did you buy it? Just tell me, because I can't make heads or tails of it.
I think it might be a psyop. Like no one actually owns it, and all the people commenting about how they own it and it's great are all like the same like 3 people at Honda's marketing team that just run like 1,000 accounts.
It's like those studies have shown that like most internet comment traffic not only is bots, but like the same 1% of users. Like, there's a very vocal minority of people in comment sections. It's usually the same type of person. Most people don't leave comments at all. They're just kind of lurking and watching stuff. So NC750X finds its way in the F tier. It's next to the Challenger Elite. Again, leave me a comment down below. I cannot make heads or tails of why anyone would buy this bike, but maybe you got to figure it out and I don't. All right, Logan, I'll take over this next one. It is the other big, powerful motorcycle on our list, the Aprilia RSV4. Recently updated, has some new colorways. Logan, this motorcycle has an 1100cc V4. It makes 220 horsepower with a factory warranty. And you might say, oh, come on, Italian, V4, 220 horsepower. It's gonna be 30 grand. Under 20 grand.
Crazy.
Under $20,000.
It's because they got all that, like, Aprilia has all that like Vespa money.
Yeah, they're like cost sharing with like Piaggio, so they're like, we can drive this down a little bit. I mean, that was the through line for my RS660 factory review, and it's cool to see, I guess, the RSV4 benefits from it as well, because if you were to cross shop this to a new Panigale V4, you're gonna pay nearly $10,000 more for base Panigale V4. You're talking Panigale V4S, forget about it, that's $35,000. So this, to me, in terms of Italian Exotica, in terms of the top end horsepower you can get, I cannot think of a better motorcycle. This, to me, is King Dick.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only downside is maybe, depending on your taste of like the way it looks, it's maybe doesn't look as good as a Ducati to everybody, like myself particularly, and then you don't get like the brand cachet. Obviously Aprilia is still sweet, and people in the know they make really cool exotic motorcycles, but if you're trying to flex on like average Joes, it's not
gonna do it. Yeah, having a brand new Panigale V4 versus a brand new RSV4, people will definitely look at the other one. But I imagine that if you're seeking out most horsepower per dollar, you're not that vain of a creature, but maybe you are. I still think this thing sounds the absolute business. It makes amazing amounts of power. It is going to be in the S tier today, of course. Come on. 220 horsepower for under 20 grand. Crazy.
Should be illegal.
Should be, yeah. You haven't ridden one, right?
No.
Yeah, it absolutely
Am I in jail?
It's a class 1 felony bike, that's what it is. All right, next up is the bike we actually have as a giveaway motorcycle right now. It's the Yamaha R9. Now, many of you have said that this is a great value for money in terms of middleweight motorcycles right now, and I tend to agree, Logan. It's pretty good value for money.
Yeah, I think so. Is it worth it?
I was gonna say, it's also kind of like, it's hard to not look at it and be like, it's a gussied up MT-09.
Right.
You know, sometimes I get that feeling myself too. The chassis is bespoke, it does have more electronics, the braking and suspension components are superior, not to the SP necessarily, but to the base model MT-09. And I think Yamaha did a pretty good job with this one. Retails for $12,500, makes 117 horsepower. We're gonna put it firmly in the B tier today. It's kind of sitting alongside the Duke 990 where you're like, you can definitely make the case for it, you know, especially compared to its competitors, Ducati V2. If KTM ever releases that RC 990, which
that's delayed till 2026 or 2027, I just saw.
Is it? Well, maybe part of our news story for next week, but yeah, so really only 2 class competitors right now, and obviously compared to the Ducati, it is better value for money. So obviously it's gonna sit above the Streetfighter V2, not quite edging up at that super top end of the value spectrum over here, but still a pretty good bike. All right, next up is another Halo motorcycle. We wanted to talk about it just because we wanted to figure out where it would sit in this. It is the Kawasaki H2, the supercharged ballistic land missile, as it were, the 240 horsepower carbon fiber laid watermark having Kawasaki. I think for the H2, Logan, you gotta really want it.
Yeah, it's like if you're buying an H2, you're buying an H2. It's
Yeah.
not like you're cross shopping between other motorcycles. It's like the North Star is like, I can afford it, I want it, that's what I'm buying.
Yeah.
There's no real consideration. So similar like some of the other bikes with maybe poor value, it's got a specific buyer in mind that could care less on the value proposition.
Yeah, that's definitely how I think of it too. It's like, if you want an H2, you're gonna get an H2. Nothing's gonna stop you. It's the bike you're gonna have to get. And this thing costs $32,700. You can still buy a brand spanking new from Kawasaki. I believe you have to get it on special order. The one that I used to have, I bought it used because I couldn't find a brand new one. But yeah, you gotta do a special order, right?
Yeah, like when I was doing the research for today, I think they just recently opened the 2026 orders or whatever, so.
Yeah, I don't think they just build them and hope that people buy them. They're like,
yeah.
let's make sure before we build some more of these, which ones are good. I think it's still really cool that Kawai's been building these since like 2015. So they've made a lot of them, honestly. There's a lot of H2s out there. They've kind of become just like an Instagram clout bike, though, I will say. Like, they've kind of ceased to exist in this like normal motorcycle space, and they're just like clout goblin bikes.
Yeah, I mean, it's because it's not really a normal motorcycle. It's like not like something you can use in the same way you use a vast majority of other bikes, right? Like, you need very specific environment, specific gumption.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a big, heavy, fast bike. It's definitely got like Busa energy about it. Like, it's not a normal bike, as Logan said. But dollar per horsepower, it ranks at $136. And so we're gonna rank it in the C tier. Whereas you can make the case for it, but it's also like, you gotta really want one of these, much like the Streetfighter V2, where you're like, if you wanna live that life, you're gonna live that life and nobody's gonna stop you.
So yeah, next up, we've got a bike that's maybe a spiritual precursor to a bike like the Honda Hornet CB1000 in terms of very value-driven, accessible, but fun, sporty motorcycle, and that's the Kawasaki Z900. So the Z900, it's a very polarizing bike. Some people love it, some people hate it. Signature styling, whatever. In a sort of hyper-naked bike, an inline four is not that exciting, but we also just glazed for the CB1000 Hornet, has an inline four, so nothing means anything.
Yeah.
But people love the Z900, super popular platform because it's very affordable for what you get. So it's making 125 horsepower at just under 10,000 bucks. Pretty good value, right?
Yeah, definitely. Tried and true platform, inline four, trellis frame, like Kawasaki build quality. They've been making this type of motorcycle for well over 20 years now. It started with the Z1000s, transitioned to these. It is a great value for money, and it's probably not going to break. And it's a really potent inline four for not a whole lot of money. So we're going to rank it firmly in the A tier. This is a great bike. Yeah. In terms of value for money, it certainly is going to sit close to the top of the heap. And that's really one of the main draws for this motorcycle. What you guys always say in the comment section. You bought a Z900 because it's a great value for money. And look at that. There it is. Great value for money. Moving on. All right, our penultimate motorcycle for today is the KTM Super Duke 1390. Logan, if ever there was a motorcycle that exuded small PP energy, it is the Super Duke 1390.
Certainly.
I just think it's a type of bike that it is so much excess. And I know that some people, that's why you love it. They're like, it wants one thing and it's disgusting. It's brutally fast, brutal torque and all that. But I personally don't get the appeal. Honestly.
Yeah, it's like KTM really knows what they were doing with this bike, and there's a reason there's been a Super Duke in their lineup since, you know, the late 90s or whatever. So they definitely have their customer base kind of pegged with this one. And I think people that are interested in the Super Duke are, unashamed about their predilection for heaping gobs of torque and what other type of deviant activities they get into.
Yeah, and it is unique because it has a V-twin engine, and it's just like preposterously large in the category. It's very unique. Everything else uses multi-cylinder engines, V4s, inline fours, supercharged inline fours. This one is really the torquiest and craziest of the bunch. So at $21,500, it's $115 per horsepower, and that's honestly pretty decent for what you're getting.
So I think this is the one, the good one.
Oh, good. Well, that's really not too bad. So if you do have a small PP and you want to let the world know, get a Super Duke. All right, last but certainly not least, it is the Suzuki GSX-S750. Now, this motorcycle, we're not exactly sure if Suzuki is still making it. Logan, we saw on the website is up to 2023, right?
Yeah, 2023, yeah.
But they also say that about the SV650, so it might just be the Suzuki's website's a little outdated and nobody has bothered to, check up on it for a while.
Speaking outdated.
Yeah, speaking of outdated, this bike is very outdated. This is like a 2017 spec motorcycle based on like a 2012 bike from like 2008 architecture. This is very old school, and it makes no apologies about it. It definitely is what it is. While the name does say GSX-S750, this uses a highly detuned version of the 750 750 motor. It doesn't have the 750 frame either. It doesn't have an aluminum twin spar frame. It's a trellis frame. So this is very much a street bike, very old school dash, very cable throttle, like no electronics, super simple. But speaking of which, it is $8,549 for 114 horsepower inline four. So that's $75 per horsepower. So this one is going to sit in the C tier, GSX-S 750. So boys, that's our tier list for today for horsepower per dollar ratings. Let us know what you think in the comments down below. Do you own any of these motorcycles? Do you agree with our rankings? If you are an elusive Harley Davidson CVO RR owner, leave me a comment down below. Would love to hear from you. Thanks again for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. See you later.